Welcome back to Make It Mondays. In this episode, I'm working on a brand new blanket. This is brand new to the channel, but it's not brand new for me. So this is a duplicate of one I've done before. It will be done out of gray yarn and pink yarn. So it'll be a pink and gray, pretty baby blankie. I have already started it. So this is the first part. So let me get everything set up and I will show you where I'm at. So this is going to be one of the log cabin blankets to start, but this is not the only type of square I'm going to do. So we'll be coming back to this view a lot. I have unfortunately already started. The main thing is I'm working with two strands held together. So what that means is that instead of just holding one strand at a time, I am holding two, but I'm not doing any funny color work with it. I'm literally just knitting as though they are one strand. But this was casted on down here. This is the wrong side, but it was worked up this line, bound off, picked up here, and then bound off, and then picked up here and bound off, and so on around. This is the middle ring. There will be an outside ring outside of this, but I'll be back in a little bit to show you how the pickup works. So here's where I'm at. So this is the center section. So I've got one little piece here, and I've got a round around that, and now I'm starting on the outer round. And I'm going to be picking up from the edge stitches. So I've got my needle through the last bind off stitch on the right. Then I'm going to insert through the slip stitch selvage, both legs of it, and then pick up a stitch. So I'm doing that by, I do things a little funny. I'm left-handed, but I knit like I'm a right-handed person. But basically I'm holding the yarn in my left hand to wrap the yarn around the needle as I poke it through. Now here I'm actually going into this stitch down here because I do something a little funny when I bind off. I do not stitch into that first stitch again. I just carry that as the stitch that goes into the bind off. Then I'm going under both legs of the bind off as well. So right there. And up to, so this is the selvage on the other side. So again, both legs. Going under one can just make it a little bit weaker, and in this case, just make it a little less pretty. Okay. And I am being very careful to catch both yarns on both legs all the way across. So now I'm going to double check that I got the right count. 8, 10, 12, 14, 21, which is correct because each segment is 7 stitches. So now turn the work around, slip that first stitch, move the yarn to the back, and knit across. And that's all that there is to this for quite a while. So I'm going to do this section, this one, and the last one on this side. And then it'll be on to the next style of square. So this is the first style. The next one is just garter stitch. And the third one is a mitered square. Each style also has a different color combination that it'll be worked from. So part of this is yarn chicken, part of this, because I've done it before, I know approximately how far and how big I can go. The goal is about a 40 by 50 blanket. And each square is going to be 10 inches. But they are all pick up and connect as you go. So it makes it a little bit easier to make, but it makes it harder to transport. And unfortunately, I'm about to go into two texts for opera. So I will have a lot of time, but not a lot of light. And it does mean carrying this back and forth in a backpack or in a project bag. So we will see how far I get, but that also is why on occasion you won't see the exact next step. I will probably, but it's repetitive enough where I can show you what the step is, even if it's not exactly on the next block. So I will be back for one of the pickups around the center block. Again, I don't know which one it's going to be. And then, yeah, be back in a bit. So I've already done one of the next style of block, but I'm going to show you how it gets started when it's not just a continuation of knitting. So in this case, I'm picking up the last of the gray V's. So see how it goes from gray to pink, and then this one is gray and gray, going right in there. I'm going to loop the yarn over and pick up a stitch, and then just with the working yarn, go and pick up the rest of the 35 along this edge. So these blocks are just worked in garter stitch, so it's knit every row. I use the stitch markers to count my rows so I don't have to go back and double check later. Obviously use whatever method works for you, and it depends on what pattern you're working on, if it says inches or rows, but yeah, use whatever works for you to keep track of where you are in a pattern. So yeah, this is all the way across to the end, and then I'm just going to be working in garter stitch for it's 70 rows, but it's 35 bumps, and then binding off at the end. And then this is worked on this side, and then it works off of the bottom, and it also works off of this side as well. So I will be back to show you how the next kind of block works. So here I am, I'm getting ready to pick up the last kind of square. I stated before I've been in a theater, so things haven't quite gone according to schedule. But the last kind of square is picked up along this long edge and then mitered all the way down to one stitch. So here's the beginning of that pickup. I've already put in the first stitch just so I wouldn't have to count on camera. And then it's literally picking up one stitch per slip stitch on the side. That is one of the biggest upsides of this entire blanket being worked in effectively garter stitch. So all of the math works out to the point where it's one slip stitch per one, or one slip stitch on a row to one vertical or one horizontal stitch when I'm picking up. So I'm also going to be counting off with how many stitches I've done, but I tend to do a whole bunch before I do that. But then I mark how many stitches in so that I make sure that the center decrease stays in the center, and I know if I've messed up anywhere. I've got a whole bunch of stitches, so now I'm going to take one of my stitch markers, 4, 6, 8, and it's going to go right at the 10 stitches point. I'm going to repeat that all the way down. When I get to the corner, there's actually going to be an added stitch. It's going to go right there. So right where this first stitch from the previous square was. So that will be the decrease stitch. So this uses a center decrease or a knit two together or whatever variation of that works for you. I do it as a slip one, knit two together, pass slip stitch over, because that's the easiest for me. So that's 20 stitches. And I'm just working all the way up to that corner just so that I know I've actually started this in the right spot. I'm reasonably sure I have, but I need to double check because it's really sad when you have to undo the entire pickup row. And I have, because this is 30 here, and try not to split between the two strands of yarn. And then I've got 6, including the one in the corner. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up all the way to the top of the previous square and then finish up the blanket. So I will be back to show you how the whole thing is done. So here is the finished blanket. So all of you remember it started here, worked to the sides, and then worked all the corners. This did actually take almost the full time of both of the shows I was working on. So it was a great use of time. It is 40 by 60, so it is a big blanket, but that means that it's going to make someone else very happy. I still need to weave in all of these little ends, but that's okay. If you got this far, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time on Make It Mondays.